Adderall. It's a medicine so many of you may be using or know folks who do for folks diagnosed with ADHD.
It's a stimulant used to treat ADHD.
U.S. has been experiencing an Adderall shortage.
An Adderall shortage continues to plague doctors, patients, and pharmacies.
The attention deficit hyperactivity drug Adderall.
The ultimate pill for a 24/7 society, and it almost sounds too good to be true.
This right here is amphetamine, more specifically under the brand name Adderall. It's a drug that can make you happy, suppress your appetite, reduce fatigue, increase your attention span, and is used to treat depression and ADHD. You've probably heard of it, but what exactly is it? Roughly 30 million people worldwide use amphetamine, which is the active ingredient in Adderall. But what exactly does it do to the body? Amphetamine affects three major systems in the body. First is the central nervous system. Amphetamine enhances neurotransmitter activity by increasing dopamine and norepinephrine levels. Next is the peripheral nervous system. Amphetamine activates adrenergic receptors, triggering a fight-or-flight response. Lastly is the cardiovascular system. Amphetamine raises heart rate and blood pressure by releasing norepinephrine and narrowing blood vessels. You may be wondering, why do people take amphetamine like Adderall? And should you? Well, amphetamine, more specifically Adderall, is commonly prescribed to treat ADHD. ADHD is believed to stem from a lack of dopamine in the brain due to dysfunctional dopamine release. Because of the lack of dopamine, the brain is constantly seeking out stimulants, resulting in distractibility. The dopamine and serotonin released by Adderall overcomes this deficit in ADHD patients, causing increased focus and making you feel less distracted. But ADHD isn't the only condition Adderall is used to treat. It's also prescribed for the management of narcolepsy and in some cases obesity. Now, let's talk about amphetamine's routes of administration. The most common and safest method is oral administration. Adderall comes in two forms: immediate release tablets and extended release capsules. Immediate release tablets kick in at around 30 to 60 minutes, while extended release capsules release the drug gradually over 8 to 12 hours. Now you might be wondering, how does Adderall work? Well, at its core, Adderall is powered by amphetamine. Now, here's the science. Amphetamine binds to a transporter protein responsible for moving those monoamines in and out of neurons. Once inside, it disrupts the storage of these neurotransmitters by targeting a protein called VMAT2. Normally, VMAT2 acts like a delivery truck, packaging monoamines into storage vesicles. But when amphetamine blocks this process, the levels of dopamine and norepinephrine inside the neurons skyrocket. This surge enhances communication between neurons, sharpening focus, increasing energy, and boosting overall mood. Now, let's talk about the feedback mechanism. The feedback mechanism works as a negative feedback loop. Here's how it works. First, we have the sensor. These are dopamine and norepinephrine receptors in your brain. These receptors are constantly monitoring the levels of these neurotransmitters. When Adderall floods the brain with dopamine and norepinephrine, these sensors pick up on the rise in neurotransmitter levels. Next, the control center gets involved. That's the hypothalamus and other regions of the brain that process this information. When the brain detects these elevated levels, it knows it needs to act. And then comes the effector. To restore balance, the brain takes immediate action. It either reduces the production of dopamine and norepinephrine, or makes the receptors less sensitive so they're not as affected by the increased levels. So you may be asking yourself, should I take Adderall? Well, it's important to be aware of the risks. A few risk factors include the drug's semi-addictive potential, which can lead to misuse, especially for those with a history of substance abuse. If you have high blood pressure or heart defects, amphetamine can cause cardiovascular risks, including heart attacks, strokes, and even death. Always consult with a doctor before starting Adderall because side effects include insomnia, decreased appetite, dry mouth, headache, increased heart rate, anxiety, dizziness, upset stomach, weight loss, increased blood pressure, nervousness, nausea, swelling, mood swings, irritability, restlessness, tremors, blurry vision, constipation, fatigue, vomiting, changes in libido, diarrhea, chest pain, euphoria, loss of consciousness, paranoia, agitation, seizures, skin rash, swelling in the hands or feet, tics or repetitive movements, cardiovascular complications, mental health issues, dry mouth, nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, diarrhea, constipation, weight loss, restlessness, nervousness, increased swelling, tremors, rapid breathing, heart palpitations, chest pain, hearing problems, impotency, short-term memory issues, paranoia, depression, blurry vision, rashes of eyes, swelling in the face or throat, increased blood pressure, impaired motor coordination, slurred speech, changes in mood and behavior. But enough with the negatives. Did you know in 1943, the US Army started issuing PEP pills to soldiers to combat battle fatigue and boost morale? Now, these were pure amphetamines. By the end of World War II, over 150 million of these pills had been shipped to American and British troops. Japanese and German forces also used similar PEP pills, and Hitler himself received daily injections of amphetamines. American troops continued to use them through the Korean and Vietnam Wars, but the practice ended in 1956 when amphetamines were no longer sold over the counter. I wonder why. And I bet you didn't know this. This right here is a molecule of amphetamine. Notice the group of carbon and 3 hydrogen atoms, also called a methyl group. If you add one more methyl group onto the end of an amphetamine molecule, it turns into its much more dangerous cousin, methamphetamine. Those 4 atoms can turn a mild study drug into one of the most notorious illegal drugs of all time, meth. So if you have been struggling with focus, fatigue, ADHD, or just need that extra boost, then I might have the perfect solution for you, amphetamine. But remember, always consult with a doctor before starting any new medication. And for legal reasons, I'm not responsible for any side effects, misuse, addiction, or death. Thanks for watching.